To get started, can I get a show of hands? How many of you are parents? How many of you have kids? Yeah, quite a few. Okay. I want you to imagine you've got a 15-month-old baby. And one day you wake up, you find some discoloration on his skin. So you take him to the doctor. The doctor says to you he's never seen anything like it before. So you take him to another doctor, and a specialist, and a dermatologist, and after 2 months of appointments, you find yourself sitting in front of a doctor at SickKids Hospital. He says to you, your son has a rare genetic condition called homozygous familial hypercholesterolemia. Many patients with this diagnosis don't live to see the age of 9, and in all likelihood, he'll be lucky to live to see the age of 3. There's one form of treatment available. It's never been done before in a child of his age or size. Do you want to try, yes or no? How do you think that feels to hear as a parent? Well, those parents were my parents, and they're right there. That child is standing here presenting tonight. I have lived 37 years now as a walking, breathing medical anomaly, and there is a long and growing list of doctors who have absolutely no idea how I'm still alive. One of the biggest reasons I'm still here is SickKids Hospital. That's a picture of me back in late 1987. That treatment, or the box in the background there, that white square, it's called a plasmapheresis machine. So essentially my condition, my body doesn't remove cholesterol, so it builds and recirculates until it kills me. So fortunately, plasmapheresis helps with that. So you can see that plastic tube coming out of my chest. It's called a central line. Essentially, that allows a way to get the blood from the body to the machine and back again, and it removes the cholesterol. So as luck would have it, it worked. Over the next bunch of years, I had over a dozen central lines. So as you can imagine, I spent a lot of time both in SickKids and at home recovering. So there's a picture of my mom and I, the VON nurse back in the day, doing a home dressing change. And I have so many great memories at SickKids Hospital. I met a lot of really cool people. I met Batman. I met Tony the Tiger. I got to meet every professional Toronto sports team multiple times. I remember, they'd come in and all the kids would just light up, right? A lot of these kids are meeting their heroes. And I'd never watched a game of sports in my life. So they would come in and I would see the Toronto Maple Leafs and I would say, what sport do you play? But the environment that they created at SickKids was so special because, like I said, so many of these kids were meeting their heroes, and well, who gets to really do that? And so it's a special place to be. This picture was taken the first week of June in 1994. And know that because on May 31st, 1994, I became the youngest kid in North America to have a triple bypass surgery. I was hospitalized for 7 days, and there I am. We're going to mention at the start. I'm burning through a shitload of adrenaline right now, and so sometimes my legs will give out or my eyes go funny. So if I seem off, I'm fine. Nothing to worry about. It's normal for me, but here we are. Okay? All that to say, at the time, that had never been done before. So SickKids didn't have a surgical team to perform the surgery. Toronto General didn't have surgical equipment to work on children. So Toronto General sent their surgical team to SickKids, and a combined group of about 20 medical staff performed my surgery. So when I say SickKids is a place that's near and dear to my heart, I mean it on a lot of levels, and I appreciate you all coming out to check this out. I'm going to move on to the theme of the night, which comes in the form of a question, and that is, when have you felt most alive? I want to take this time to pause for a second. Can I get everyone just to do a quick raise of one hand, quick up, down, just to make sure. Okay? No pain. Everybody can do this? Perfect? Okay, good. So in about 20 minutes, I'm going to come back to this question, and I'm going to be looking for volunteers. And now that I know, everybody can raise their hand, okay? I know I can get some volunteers. Now, if by chance I don't get volunteers, and I know your name, Alanna, Nora, hey, Greer, hey, Pete, yeah, and I know your name, Nate in the back, I'm probably going to ask you specifically, okay? So just get a couple volunteers. We're not looking to make anybody uncomfortable. Just trying to hear what comes to mind for other people, because I feel very confident they'll be different than what comes to mind for me. And so I'm very curious what those things are. These are the things that I associate with life. So for me, when I think about the times that I have felt most alive, I immediately think of three words, and they are all associated with intensities. I associate them with times of expansion in my life, and they are things that have shifted my entire human experience. So, like I said, I'm going to share with you three words that are all associated with a story, and then I'm going to come back and hope for some volunteers. Okay? Sounds good? Everybody? Yeah, okay. Great. My computer is just acting up. 1 second. It's going to be a thing. Nice. Do this again. Sorry about that. So, like I said, three words that come to mind for me. The first one has got to be chaos. June 20th, 2019. Oh, I'm going to rewind one day. June 19th, 2019. This is a part of the story I don't know that I've ever told before. So, Mom and Dad's surprised. We will see about that. June 19th, 2019. It was a Wednesday. And at the time, life was a little stressful. I was going through divorce. And lo and behold, I had a date. So, I was going down to Burlington to pick up this lady friend. Came back to Teeswater, had dinner, had a time. Thursday morning, 6 o'clock, I wake up, I had a fever. I remember thinking, fuck, of all the days that I could get sick. Right? I wake up with the flu, the first time I have company in months. Right? The first time, of course, is today. So I took a couple Tylenol, I went back to bed. And a couple hours later, I woke up and I felt infinitely worse. So I ended up driving her back to Burlington. And I remember when I got gas in Burlington, I got out of my car, and I had chills so bad, I couldn't stand up. My knees were shaking so much. So I leaned on my car, pumped my gas, and got in the car to drive back to Teeswater, which my car at the time was a Standard, so it really, in hindsight, was a bad idea. But as I got closer home, I had to go to the hospital. I need to reroute and go to Wingham. So into Wingham Hospital I go. They do a bunch of blood work, do a bunch of testing, and everything came back just fine. So since I was clearly not fine, they got a hold of infectious disease control in London, and they arranged for an ambulance. So at that time, I called my mom and I said, Mom, happy birthday. Everything's okay. I'm in Wingham Hospital. I don't know what's going on, and I'm being taken to London by ambulance. They're on their way. And as she always is, she was calm and cool on the phone and said, no problem. I'll call your dad at work. I'll get your CPAP machine, change your clothes, and we'll see if I can't meet you at the hospital before you leave. But sure enough, that's exactly what happened. My mom and dad come in right as I was being loaded into the ambulance, and they saw me off. So I remember we got through Lucan, we got to Elginfield, and as we were coming around that corner, there's the lights. I saw him out the back window of the ambulance. I said to the nurse, something's wrong. Something just changed. And so they checked my vitals. Everything was just fine. Everything was stable. But about 10 seconds later, I was convulsing. So I don't know how many people here have had convulsions or seizures in here, but that was my first time. And I will tell you, it was intense. At that time, I was just over a year post major reconstructive heart surgery. And I could see the monitor. I could see my heart rate was over 200. My fever had spiked over 105. Every muscle in my body was contracted. I'm slamming onto the stretcher. They hit me with 5 milligrams of Dilaudid, and nothing happened. I could hear the driver talking to London Hospital saying, patient's crashing, need further instructions. Because at the time, I was stable, right? They didn't have authorization to do anything else. And I'll tell you, the back of that ambulance was absolute chaos. I realized I had this sort of divide in my consciousness where part of me, my body was convulsing. You know, I was in this intense, as I said, I don't know if I ever had them, but it's pretty hard to miss. And the other side of me, I remember laughing to myself and thinking, I didn't see this coming. 24 hours ago, I was in a much different reality. And I says, what? You know? So, ended up getting down to London. I was convulsing for over an hour in the hallway. Eventually I black out. A couple hours later I wake up, my parents are there. Andy and Kyle, two of my good friends, are there. And in comes the plastic surgeon. So, Mr. Elliott, we think you've got necrotizing fasciitis. We need to get you into surgery immediately. We're going to cut into the skin of your chest, assess the tissue. If it looks how we think it does, we're going to cut it all away. There is no cure for necrotizing fasciitis. It's fleshy disease. So, sure enough, I signed the paper. In 5 minutes, I'm in surgery. And luckily, it was necrotizing cellulitis. I had a staph A blood infection and a bunch of other stuff going on. But I spent 2 weeks in the ICU. And I will tell you, it was the most physically traumatizing time of my life. Hands down. There on the left, that was my first couple of days anyway, post-surgery. Picture on the right, it's more like 10 or so days in. I was in there for, like I said, 13 days. And day 9, where's Joel? Joel, can you just put your hand up for a minute? There he is. So, Joel, yeah, this is a real-life appreciation post for you. Okay? So, day 1, Thursday night, I went for surgery. Friday, rough. 7 days later, rough. Friday morning, get my firm cap out. I had 3 PICC lines put in with no freezing. It was a brutal day. Saturday, Sunday, get a text from Joel. Hey, man, you up for a visitor? Yeah, man. Like, well, I'm going to bring a lady friend. And I remember it took me a minute to realize what exactly he was asking me. And I was, at the time, like I said, I was in hospital. This is 9 days. I've been in bed the whole time. I had 5 kinds of IV antibiotics going through my system. I couldn't stand. I couldn't walk. I just had my femoral line taken out. Like, I am in no shape for that kind of visitor. So I said, no thanks, man, not this time. He replies back, cool, I'll bring snacks. And sure enough, about 2 hours later, in comes Joel. He's all fucking short shorts, all veined down on pre-workout, comes down the ICU hallway. My room is all the way on the end. You can see the window. That was in the room on the end. In comes Joel, 2 big bags of snacks from Farm Boy. He's like, muscle fucking Bill. I just remember, like, what a change that made, you know? I just had literally the most difficult week of my life, and in comes Joel like nothing's happened. And he unloads all this stuff on the end of my bed. He's got a full Mississippi mud pie. He's got cookies and donuts, full thing of ice cream and bowls and spoons, this whole thing. And I'm like, I don't have a fridge, man. Where am I going to put all this? It's just going to melt. And he's like, yeah, fuck it. Let's just eat some. Yep. So sure enough, we ate a bit of whatever, and we gave it to the nurses, and it was just an awesome time. And my point in sharing that story is not to underestimate the power of your presence. We have the ability to literally change lives by just being there, showing up as ourselves, and we never know when those times are until they're past. And so, again, man, 4 years later, I appreciate you. Thank you for that. It was a game changer for me, and clearly, still remember. So, anyway, thank you. Yes, sir. Now, the second word that comes to mind for me, it's got to be love. Now, spoiler alert. This one actually works out really good. This gets kind of heavy for a minute. I'm going to do my best to come through this with everybody, and just bear with me. I'm going to do my best. So, does anyone here remember what they dreamt of being when they grew up as a kid? Just shout it out. Anybody childhood dreams? Rock star? Yeah, Pete?
Teacher.
Teacher, we got it. Anybody?
Firefighter.
There it is, firefighter.
Rambo.
Rambo, absolutely. Arnold Schwarzenegger? You got the shotgun? Right. The only dream I ever remember having through all of my surgeries, all my procedures, my entire life, thousands of needles and IVs, the only thing I ever knew for sure is that one day when I grow up, the only thing that matters is that one day I'm going to be a father. And so you can imagine my excitement when my ex-wife and I found out we were pregnant. I remember going for blood work, test comes back, it's positive. Now it's happening. Right? We go to the ultrasounds, we see the baby, we see the heartbeat, it's going way too fast, and immediately you think, this is wrong, right? Something's going wrong. And she says, no, everything's fine. And so one day, I was at work, I got a call. My ex, her water had broken, and her umbilical cord had started to show. So I dropped everything. I ran, got home, I picked her up, down to the hospital we went. Got to Goderich Hospital, checked for the baby, everything was fine, she was still healthy. So we're overnight in Goderich, and we were 2 weeks too early for them to be able to help us, so they transferred us down to the birthing unit in London. And I remember it was a Friday afternoon, we got in the car, drove down to London, go into the birthing unit, and when we got there, they couldn't find the heartbeat. So because her water had broke, she was running the risk of infection. And at 12:43 that night, I met my daughter. I will tell you, the staff in the birthing unit were incredible. They recommended we spend time with her skin to skin. They recommended we take some pictures. And so that's what we did. That Saturday morning, I held my daughter to my heart as we watched the sunrise. And I will tell you, if ever there was a time in my life that I was very intensely aware of how alive I was, that sunrise was intense. Now at the time, my ex wanted to pretend like it didn't happen, and so essentially that's what we did. And as you can imagine, that wasn't a great long-term solution for our relationship, but it took me 5 years to even stop to ask myself if there was something that I needed to talk about. And what would have been her 5th birthday, I remember I was sitting in my apartment in Teeswater, I was staring at my wall, and I said to myself out loud, I need to go to therapy. But I couldn't go to therapy because we were 1 month into COVID at the time. This was April 11th, 2020. And so, as I do, I said to myself out loud again, since the thing that I need isn't available, what else? Right? What do I do? And so I asked myself, well, if I was in therapy, what do I think they would say? What do I think I would say? So I started asking myself questions. Questions like, can you tell me about what you remember from that day? Can you talk about why you feel guilty? And I will tell you, when you ask yourself questions and you are open to hearing the answers, you will get them. Before I knew it, I was standing in my bathroom talking to myself in the mirror. I don't remember what I said or what I asked specifically, but the next thing I knew, I had collapsed on the floor. And it's funny, in movies you see it all the time. Somebody dies, and then somebody runs up, and they find them, and it's this whole dramatic thing. They fall on the ground, and it's raining, and it's nighttime, and they start to cry, right? It's this yelling, this whole scene. And up until this point in my life, I could understand this was an intense thing that's happening. This is supposed to be sad and these types of things, but that's not real. And people don't do that. And there I was. I was on the floor in my bathroom, choking for air, fighting back puke. I was screaming at the top of my lungs and I wasn't making a sound. And once again, I had this split in my consciousness where my body, I couldn't breathe. I was on the verge of blacking out. And the other side of me, I remember literally I said, I didn't know my body could do this. I didn't know this was real. And probably the biggest lesson in all of this for me has been in acceptance, accepting what is, accepting what was, accepting things that are yet to be, and probably mostly accepting that I have absolutely no idea what to expect in this life. Like I said, that was year 8 this year. 8's a big year for me. I had my triple bypass. When I see little kids that are turning 8, you know, I see myself. I see my parents from their eyes and me, and it's just this whole weird thing. And this year was year 8. I thought, I just want to smash some shit with a baseball bat. Every day. For literally weeks, I woke up and it's all I could think about. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel upset or aggressive at anything. That's all I could think about. And every day, I told myself, not today. You wait. April 11th, I'll go to the Restore, I will go to Walmart, I'll buy a bunch of stuff, and I will fucking smash it. And then comes April 11th. And I found myself sitting at the beach at the sunset, talking to this guy. I found myself at Zayre's buying one piece of cake so I could light candles and sing happy birthday. As it turns out, I didn't want to smash anything. I just wanted to celebrate. So I did. To anyone here who knows those feelings, to anyone here who knows that throat closing, gut wrenching, scream at the top of your lungs and you're not making any sound, if you know what I'm talking about, I see you. I see you. Now, to lead into the third word, we're going to start with a poem. And so I'd like everyone just to close their eyes for a moment and then follow along. And since I forgot my book, I'm going to read it right here. Open your eyes. You can't see, but you know they're open. You know you're alive because you can hear your heartbeat on a monitor beside you. There's a tube down your throat, and immediately you know it's keeping you alive. Your mouth is filled with a blood clot. You feel extreme pain, yet somehow your entire body is numb. You try to move your fingers, your toes, anything, but you can't tell if they're actually moving. Close your eyes. You take a breath. This is stillness. And stillness to me is kind of the oddball on this list because it's not a word that I feel is generally associated with intensities. But for me, it is a very visceral thing. It's a place that I can go. It's a thing that I know very well. That poem is written about 2 different events in my life. The first of which is the summer I was 9. If anybody has read the back of the little flyer, there's a little blurb about how I had a Nintendo in my room for 2 weeks, I was on lockdown. Anyway, 1995. So, I was hospitalized for 5 weeks at SickKids Hospital. It turns out I had whooping cough. The day that my test results came back, I happened to have a Nintendo in my room, and as luck would have it, I got to play Spider-Man for 2 weeks straight. We got to do some crafts, we had to. It was a little tight, but it went really well. And after that, while I was in hospital, I was diagnosed with this other condition called superior vena cava syndrome. Does anybody here know what the superior vena cava is or does? You're nodding.
It's the top left valve that pumps the heart into the second valve.
Yeah, so it's the return point for your upper body circulation to your heart. So all of your upper body circulation, primarily your head and brain, neck, chest, shoulders, arms, it all comes to and through your superior vena cava and then recirculates through the body. My superior vena cava has been completely scarred shut for almost 30 years. And so you might think, well, how does blood get back to your body? I would say that is a great question. But like I said, so 1995, it's a bit of the Wild West in the medical world, and they said, no problem, we can help you. We'll put a stent through the blockage, which is essentially like a metal straw. We'll punch it through the scar tissue, and you'll have blood in your body again. We're all good. So, in for surgery I go, they do the surgery, and immediately reverse the surgery, wake me up and say, sorry, we can't help you. So what had happened, the blockage in my SVC was too tall, and the scar tissue went all the way up into my neck. So you can imagine putting a metal straw from your neck to your heart isn't a great way to stay alive very long. So they couldn't do it. And I remember when I woke up from that surgery, I knew why my neck hurt. I had an incision, and they told me they had trouble intubating me. So I knew why the back of my throat was all torn up and why I had so much blood in my mouth. But I couldn't understand why my face hurt so much. You know, it hurt to open my eyes, it hurt to look around, and it didn't make any sense. And at the time, I had, again, my bypass a year earlier, the whole left side of my chest was numb, so I had nerve damage. And I remember thinking to myself, maybe I just have nerve damage now, and this is just the way my face is now. But after a few days, they took out my catheter, and anyone who's had a catheter knows you have about so many hours to go pee on your own before you get another one. So as a 9-year-old, I was very motivated to get up to go pee. And I remember I grabbed my IV pole, I shuffled into the bathroom, and when I looked at the mirror, everything made sense. See, what happened, under anesthesia, my eyes had opened. They kept opening. So they taped them shut. However, especially as a kid, I had extremely sensitive skin. And so when they took the tape off of my eyes, it took all the skin on my eyelids with it. And so when I looked in the mirror, I had this red scab blood on my face. I remember looking at myself, I just felt so relieved. You know, I thought, this is no big deal. It's just blood. It's just scabs. I thought it was nerve damage. You know, I thought my face might hurt forever. And this is going to heal. You know, it's no big deal. Kind of a odd thought for a 9-year-old, but that was me. Now, the second part of that poem comes from my heart surgery in 2018. Keep this kind of short. Well, 2017, I went into heart failure. 2018, I finally went for surgery. Friday, May 25th, 7 o'clock, I go in. 20 hours later, I came out. During that time, both of my lungs had collapsed. My kidneys had all but failed. I was given 67 units of blood product, which is over 30 liters of blood. And because my kidneys weren't functioning, my body didn't process the fluid very well. So when I woke up, I had put on over 50 pounds of fluid in less than 8 hours. And that's me. 50 pounds heavier overnight. Now, going into that surgery, remember I telling my mom, because it was an unknown thing. I didn't know if I was going to live. I didn't know really what they were going to do. But I said, if I live, can you tell me I'm alive? Can you tell me how it went? Can you tell me what day it is? Because I have no idea like how long this is going to be. And sure enough, I remember hearing my mom's voice. She said, Bill, you did it. You're alive. Everything went great. You did great. Your dad and I are here. Your sister's family's here. Your brother's here. We're all here. Your brother's got to catch the train back to Kingston, though. He's been here since Friday. He's got to get back to the family. Thank you for coming. And then I went back to sleep. Once again, I found this divide in my consciousness. Where part of me, my whole body was numb. All the nerve endings of my upper body were compressed. And what I would come to find out is I had a stage 4 pressure ulcer on my tailbone. that they didn't even discover until about 6 days in. So, laying on my back the whole time. Anyone who's experienced nerve pain, you know that it is very hard to miss. I was on fire. And I felt complete stillness. I felt not concerned in the slightest. Because going into that surgery, I knew that if I opened my eyes after, I would be just fine. And I just went back to sleep. Now, those are the three things that come to mind for me. Now we're going to the time that you all been waiting for. When have you felt most alive? I would love to get some volunteers. I don't need any amount of detail. I don't need anything. Yeah, here we go, Dad.
Back to hospital stuff. Sitting in Wayne. This is going to be tough. He's got to go to Toronto. The guy in an ambulance. Week before, I knew the drivers, and somebody followed him to the hospital and caused an accident. They had to take care of it. So they said, take your time. We'll get him there. I beat the ambulance to SickKids by 30 fucking minutes. From Wayne to Toronto. They went and got off the expressway down in Toronto. And went into Chinatown. I had no idea where they were. They didn't know where SickKids Hospital was. It took me 3 weeks before I could go into the Wayne Hospital. I carried this, and I would kill him. I knew I'd hung around with brother. It took me 3 weeks before I could go in the hospital because them assholes took half an hour longer than I did to get from the hospital.
Hospital.
SickKids. When I actually was on number 6 in the 401, an ambulance came across the overpass, and I went through Kitchener, and there was construction there. And I saw the ambulance, I said, no, there's no way. And when they were coming off the off-ramp, there was a fucking Casey brothers driving that ambulance. I didn't know was in there. From number 6 to the hospital, I came there for 30 minutes. Pretty intense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember asking him, why are we in Chinatown? Because I knew the way to SickKids off the back of my head. And I want to know, construction.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
When you get an ambulance from William to SickKids, you feel more than alive. Mark like you did.
No.
Everybody remember this part here?
Yeah, I always forget they had them out. So, by the way, everyone, I hand out these cards, and they're right there. So I will probably forget very shortly again, but hopefully you don't. Okay, thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening. And as every good presentation has, I'm going to try to give you a couple of key takeaways to remember. These are things that have been floating around in the front of my mind for the last 6 months or so. Okay, so I'm hoping that you will find them valuable to also just think about. The first one is, if you don't believe it's possible, it never will be. So many times in our lives we have these ideas, we get these dreams come to us, and we get stuck in this cycle of talking about it. We talk to our friends, we try to get more opinions, right? So we don't know where to start, we want to succeed, and so we ask people that we know, what do you think? And we add to the ideal pile in our head, and we have a conversation, and then we just end up with more ideas. So what do? Of course, we ask another person. What are their thoughts? Do you know what the best idea is? What do you think the highest chance of success is? At the end of the day, so often we just end up talking about things forever and never actually doing them. Now, my entire life, I essentially equate to this. If you were to go back 35, 36 years, to talk to that first doctor and say, your son will be lucky to see the age of 3, I feel like I probably outlived them. So we have absolutely no idea what's possible until we try, right? We can get stuck in these ideas forever, trying to find the best one, trying to find the most successful one. At the end of the day, indecision never gets shit done. So you just have to find a place to start. Just decide and try. Yeah? Right. The second thing leads into this one, is that nobody can do it for you. Nobody can do it for you. This presentation, if you were rewinding 3 months ago, where I didn't have any of this planned, asked me, how do you organize a fundraiser? I would have said, I have no idea. So what did? I called SickKids Hospital, told me, yes, I could fundraise. Great. I called Peter Dew. I said, Peter Dew, you've done some fundraising. Could you give me some guidance on where to start? He absolutely did. And down the path I go, and fortunately, this is a cause that is near and dear to many people's hearts. And so I had immediate support from, well, all of you, everybody here, everybody on the banner. This has been an incredible experience. But one thing I know for sure is that if I would have tried to find a professional speaker to come stand here and tell this for me, nobody wants to come. I wouldn't come. And they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know, they don't have that visceral experience. They don't have the memories that I do. And so I don't want to hear about my life from someone else. It's got to be me. This isn't easy for me. I don't feel like a professional. You know, I bought this clicky thing on Amazon a month ago, and it fucking works great. Turns out, laptop, Alex hooked me up with this thing. Here we go. You know, looks pro. Great. You know, but I don't know what I'm doing. I put this together because I Googled how to make a slideshow, and here we are. Right? But that's the truth. You got to start. And so what do? You take a step. And that's exactly what I did. Right? Where do I start? Tell SickKids, go through the steps one at a time, because I don't know what they are. Right? I talked to Alanna, let's get some music. Great. I love music. Got a whole tattoo about it. You know, Nate and Scott, I've known you guys for over 20 years. You guys have been playing music. It's extra special to me that you've been able to come, because we played shows for what? Many days ago, right? As we talked about earlier. So it's extra cool to have you included in this thing that is so very near and dear to me. Now, I find for myself, when I start thinking about all these ideas and I get lost in this mental chaos, the first thing I do every single time, and Gerd knows this, is I take a breath. You find your body, you take that breath, create space between your thinking mind, and in that space, you can decide, what is that thing that I can do right now, even though I don't know the rest of the things. So we don't even know what needs to be done. Like, I don't know the steps, I know the first step, and you learn them as you go. But at the end of the day, nobody can do it for you, and we have absolutely no idea what's possible until we try. Nobody can experience the intensities of life for you, and we are all just down here trying to navigate this thing we call life. And what a thing it is. Life is wild. Life is beautiful. Yeah, nice. To end things off for tonight, I want to share with you one more of my personal beliefs. It's something that I've found to be true across all aspects of my life. From 35 years in and out of hospital beds, to over 20 years in customer service, standing here right now tonight with all of you is something that I feel we can always be aware of. I believe we have the power to change the world through conversation. And so I want to leave you tonight with one question. What kind of conversations are you having? Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. That's it. There we go. All of the sponsors tonight.